Are you someone who has a lot of things going well in your life? Maybe success in many different areas? Life looks good on paper, but inside feel overwhelmed. Let me introduce you to my guest today. Meet Samantha. For over 20 years, Samantha has been an accomplished leader in the equipment finance industry. For the past 9 years, she has been a senior account manager at GE Healthcare Financial Services. She serves on boards, most recently with the Healthcare Financial Management Association. She is a two-time cancer survivor. She's passionate about medical self-advocacy and prioritization of testing and screening. She's been a champion for women's leadership and mentoring initiatives throughout her career, and she has chaired several events, including the Women Lead Here conference, which you'll get to hear more about. She says she's a terrible but fully content golfer. She's been married to her best friend for 20 years, and they have one amazing daughter, Barrett. She's currently chasing joy and working toward making the world a little better, one gesture at a time. She clearly has a full plate, and when we started working together, her plate felt really heavy, and the responsibility of it all just felt like too much. As she learned to focus on the things she could control, to turn down the pressure and make changes in the way she was doing things, she challenged and questioned rules she had created for herself and made space for a new way to live. Her load didn't change, but her approach has, and this has made a huge impact where it matters most to her. As we worked together to lighten the internal load she was placing on herself, she made space for her true purpose to reveal itself. And you are about to hear all about that and more. I just bet you're going to love her as much as I do. I'm Carla Reeves, and this is Differently, a podcast where we explore the ins and outs of what becomes possible when we're willing to think, do, and show up differently to the moments of our everyday lives. Hey, Samantha, welcome to Differently.
Hi, Carla. Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
I'm so excited to have you here. It was such an incredible honor to work with you, and I'm just excited to give people a peek into how that all transpired and from your perspective. And yeah, let's just dive in. Why don't you, I'd love for you to give people, paint a picture of kind of who you are and what you do in the world, and
Okay.
just a sense of who you are. Yeah.
A self-portrait. There we go. So, apart from my career at GE Healthcare Financial Services, with that, I provide funding solutions for healthcare organizations, so hospitals, imaging centers, physician groups, for the equipment that they need to provide patient care. And I've been doing that for longer than I probably care to admit, but, around 20 years in the equipment finance realm. And I just love it. I mean, I've got a great team. It's, good company to work for, and I really enjoy my work. Outside of that, I'm really heavily involved with a professional trade association called the Healthcare Financial Management Association, or HFMA, and more specifically, the Arizona chapter. And one of the key events that we've done now, this will be our 9th year, is a women's leadership conference. So having been on the planning committee for it's called the Women Lead Here conference, that takes up, more time than, so it takes up quite a bit of time, but I love it. I mean, I love the volunteering aspect. So, I got a pretty full day job. I do some volunteering through that association. I'm married to a great guy that we've been together for 30 years. And we have one terrific daughter. So yeah, it's just a full, very full life, and I love it.
Yeah, I love that. So take us back to how we just tell the story of how you and I got connected and how we met and how this
absolutely.
journey
so
started.
As part of the right, where it all began, as part of the planning committee, we needed to go and find really terrific speakers. And it was one of my friends on the committee, Kelly Bauer, who said, "Oh, we found this great speaker. Her name's Carla Reeves. We're getting ready to lock her in as a keynote speaker." And then we had to pivot that to virtual because of COVID. And so I know that we were really concerned at the time, like, oh my gosh, were all of our speakers going to stick with us? New format. It's not on a physical stage. But we were very, very fortunate to be able to book you as a keynote speaker for last year's event. And, so some of the initial planning and discussions just sort of through email, oh, this looks really great, really, really excited. And, I think our event was better because of it. So fast forward, we're sitting there, I'm in front of my computer listening to you speak, and I'm just taking notes just furiously, right? Like, oh, new thoughts, new actions, new results. I'm like, yeah, I'm all for it. And I took a bunch of notes and all of these takeaways, but, sort of after the conference closed, like, all right, you're just back to sort of everyday life. So you get this like big push for inspiration and there's some takeaways that I still carry with me, and don't believe everything that you think. Your Carla-isms still ring true. But after the conference, you got this great wave of inspiration and wonderful speaking. And then I started following you on Instagram and started listening to the podcasts. So it's, I feel that we've been connected for a really long time, albeit I sort of feel like I was sort of sitting in the audience just watching and taking notes. And then
and then I feel like I want you to give a little shape to the event, because it was such a great event. And I know we're going to talk about this year's event later, but just give a little context to the event, because you guys did such an amazing job. And I honestly, as a speaker, I was really confronted when it went virtual, and I thought, can I do this? Like, I hadn't ever delivered a talk that way, and I didn't know if you'd be able to really connect with people and have it, have deep meaning. And you guys did such a good job of that whole entire day of really, I had no idea a virtual event could be so impactful and so engaging. And I was really wowed by what you guys created in that. So bring a little context to the event itself.
Thank you. So I think we tried as hard as we could to sort of mimic an in-person event. So we have a keynote speaker. We always partner with a great charitable organization locally to try to help raise awareness and raise funds. So we give them some time on the stage, and then we have different breakout sessions. So you can choose something that really resonates with you. So, not everybody wants, a discussion around how to manage a team. Not everybody is looking for, relationship situation, or how to manage conflict and things like that. So, we've got this keynotes, and then you have your option to do different breakouts. And then we've got networking, and then, another keynote, we do more breakouts, and then an afternoon keynote. And so there really is something for everything. And it really is the three pillars that we try to aspire to is, inspire, learn, and connect. So inspirational speakers galore, and you hear about things that other women are doing in the world, and the struggles that they've overcome personally and professionally, and there's just so much inspiration there. That learn, there are tactical things that we learn on how to be a leader, either personally, professionally, how to manage just different facets of your life, and then that connect piece, obviously a little bit more difficult through a virtual platform than in person, but we were really lucky to be able to use different tools to bring those in. So we did audience polling. We used a fun, interactive program called Mentimeter, so you could build a word cloud and get immediate feedback from the audience, multiple choice questions, things like that. And then we had like smaller breakout groups where we encouraged people to go cameras on, and there really was that face-to-face networking. I mean, again, it's a little bit different through the screen, but we were all so surprised that we were able to port over that entire experience into a virtual day. And that the conference it's a full day of learning. And, it's something that I think as women, especially, we don't do enough of, which is I'm going to take this day for me. I'm going to turn off my work. I'm going to put my out of office on, and I am going to sit there and I'm going to, go to the conference. Just had the joy of not having to wear high heels or tight pants or Spanx. You could wear your yoga pants and sneakers. So I think that we did a good job sort of making lemonade out of the lemons that we were dealt there. But it's just something that I've been so passionate about. I attended the first one, like I said, 9 years ago, and just participated in the audience and was so moved by the caliber of women that were in the room, and the sense of community and friendship and mentorship. And, it's just been something that I've volunteered for every single year ever since then. So I've held different roles volunteering just for that specific conference, little smaller roles to even co-sharing and chairing the event. But it's just so much fun. And the group of women that, help put the conference together, just incredible. And we've been, again, another sort of benefit of having it be virtual is we can get great speakers from anywhere in the world. They just have to have
anyone can attend, because historically it was just live here in Phoenix, right?
Yep, it was. And so we had people from, as far away as Hawaii and Maine. We had somebody from Canada, and this year on the committee, and we sort of broadcast it everywhere. So we put it out on LinkedIn and just sort of a generic Facebook, generic Instagram, our Instagram accounts. And so we had people that were not from our normal sort of, I'll call it our pool of attendees within that healthcare finance group. And it's women who are entrepreneurs, women who are, they work in their homes, they're the head of their household, or they are, they work in a salon or real estate or, whatever. So it's grown organically outside of just our little healthcare cadre, but it really is just an event for women who are looking for information on, it's just self-improvement all around. And we really have a really, full slate of different speakers and topics every year that really, there's always something for everyone. And it really is such a great conference. I'm biased, but it really is great.
It really is great. I can vouch for that. And what was really cool is you closed the event last year in your kitchen, right? With the mixologist and a little happy hour. And that was so fun too.
Yep. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to play, we've got a special cocktail. So every year or not every year, but we've got a swag box. So we want to make it feel special. It's not just another webinar. It's not just another conference call. We're calling it a live event that's delivered digitally. So ahead of the conference, our attendees will get a swag box full of all the fun, tchotchkes and things to really maximize your experience. There's, QR codes for different offers from our sponsors. We have a great raffle that's tied to it where our charitable partner for the year will get all the proceeds. But, we're going to do a virtual game night, and we're going to play Pictionary and have a custom cocktail. And again, it'll all be face to face, and it's just a lot of fun. It's different, but in some ways it's great. It's better. And in some ways, that's just different.
So great. And we'll get to all the details of how you can get signed up and all of that later. Okay.
Yes.
So back to your story.
Yeah. So, like I said, I mean, we, I saw you speak and was really moved and inspired and started following you, as one does with the great speakers and things like that. And, loved all the posts and whatnot. And then, I want to say it was around May. I don't know. I mean, the way that I was feeling at the time, and maybe that's the way to approach this is, by all accounts from the outside, I'm killing it. I'm a successful career. I've got an amazing family, terrific husband, great kid. I feel good about who I am as a parent, all of these things. I've got an amazing group of girlfriends, and by all accounts, oh, okay, very successful, right? But I was just crushed. I mean, I was so overwhelmed, and just every little thing, it was the weight of the world. And it was like, oh, I've got to, little things, right? Oh, I have a new credit card. I've got to call and activate my credit card. Like, oh my gosh, it's one more thing. I've got to help my mom remember her password to Apple. Like, oh my gosh, it's one more thing. I've got to help my daughter with study for her test. It's just, I'd call it like AFT. It was another freaking thing. And it was depressing to know that there's nothing that I could do about it. That was just adult life. But it was crushing. And you got to make dinner. You got to go to the grocery store. You got to clean up after dinner. You've got to, go pick up after the dogs. You got to walk the dogs. You've got to go to work. You got to show up. And I just, even though by outward measures, like successful, great job, it was just a lot, it was too much. And it was sort of sinking into despair, knowing that there's nothing I can do about it. It's just life.
Yeah. Well, and I think the picture you paint there is really like, that's what I hear so often. I think when people think of like needing coaching, they think there needs to be like, I don't know, some major problem or like some specific scenario that they're going through. And a lot of times, most people I work with, their lives are like, they have a lot of success in their life, and life looks good on the outside, or it looks good on paper, but the individual isn't experiencing that amazing life. And it's because of the inner angst and the over, burdened responsibility, or what this world that we've created for ourselves, that like you and I were talking before we hit record, that, we all have a load, but the heavy is in our head. And yeah, so you were feeling, you had a load, and there was a lot of heavy that you and I could work with to really start to lighten that load. So I think you painted that beautifully, and it's really common that people feel that way. Like, well, it doesn't always look like your life is falling apart. Sometimes we're just falling apart inside. It was that way for me too. Like, my life looked great, but inside there was a lot of inner angst that maybe not everybody on the outside could see. Yeah.
And I think it's more common than we probably realize. I think that especially in the, with the social media and things like that, where people are just really posting all the glossy highlights of their life to make the assumption that, man, the way that I'm feeling is abnormal or less than, or, it's not right. But if you were to really peel back the veneer of everyone that you see, I mean, they're all going through stuff, and it's hard to manage it. It's life is just messy, and we can have a great job, we can have a solid relationship, but there's no escaping that, call it the sand in the shorts of everyday life, that for some people for me, it got just really a lot. And none of the things in and of themselves were, like Herculean lifts, but it was like, oh my God, I got to pay bills today. I don't when am I never going to not have to pay bills? Well, never, dummy. That's, life. But it was just, again, like every little thing felt like just such a blow. Flat tire, oh my gosh, I've got to go to the gas station and get gas. Like, shouldn't be a big deal, but it was just adding up, the weight of all those things.
Maxed out. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that's so true with social media. It's like, I heard somebody say, like, where, you're often comparing your sort of low moment with everybody's high moments and feeling like something's wrong. What is wrong? What am I doing wrong?
Yeah. Well, and I think just that whole stigma of like, everything's not perfect. So I have bad days. Sometimes everybody has days, struggle with your mental health and making sure that you're, staying healthy and doing all the right things that you need to keep your psyche up. But anyway.
It's a practice.
I digress.
That's right. It's a
I
practice.
digress. It is a practice. Yes.
Yeah. So take us back. So you were following me on social, and you saw something, right? And
I did. It's like, again, you see these things like inspirational post. Oh, that's great. And you feel like, oh, it's sort of like a quick fix, right? Like you go on, you read something and it's like, oh yeah, I'm going to do that. I'm going to think positive today. Okay. But it's not lasting. And so you had posted in March on Instagram about the heavy, right? The heavy of the world. Our loads are heavy. And that, the hopeful message in there was that we can ease that lightness into our lives by just reminding ourselves who's in control, right? Is it me or is it my mind? I'm quoting your words back to you. But it was a gut punch because it was exactly what I was feeling, and it was articulate in a way that I hadn't heard before, not through any of my self-talk or any external sources or anything like that. And it just was like, yes, this is it exactly. And so, very out of character for me, because I don't comment a lot on social media. I mean, especially like not from a public forum. But I went in there and I just verbal vomit, or text, I guess, social media vomit. Like everything is adding up and I'm so overwhelmed, and laundry and groceries and flat tire. And, I just unloaded it, right? Like homework, being responsible for every meal. I got to go grocery shopping, housekeeping, And it was just, I'd never done that before. And to your credit and, to your thank you, you sent me an email, or you posted back just a really thoughtful comment in the chat, and then followed it up with an email because we had, by some stroke of fortune, had already been connected. Yeah. And you were like, hey, I think we need to talk. I saw what you wrote and let's talk. And it was very unexpected and, again, very much appreciated, because I don't think that I would have recognized that there was a way for me to sort through that in a meaningful way and sort of get through that, like the way that I did. So that's kind of where it all started. Is, I attended this great conference. I heard you speak. I started following you on Instagram. I started listening to your podcasts, and, there was the intersect of the thing I was feeling and struggling with and the thing that you were talking about and sort of helping with. And from there, we struck up a conversation about what was possible through some of the coaching programs and things like that. And I just, let's sign me up. Let's do it.
The rest is history. Yeah. And I think I do remember, like, one of our first conversations, it was like it was sometimes, what am I trying to say? For you, I remember you using the word adulting. You kind of said, like almost like you had, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but like felt a little bit resigned to the fact that like this is kind of just how life is. And I think that can happen for a lot of us, where it's just because if you look around, it's like, well, everybody else is kind of talking about the same things and feeling the same things. And so we become resigned that life can be any different. And so I remember, I think you described it as like, my life is great. And I just feel like I'm pushing a boulder up the hill. Yeah. And there was a lot of hard. So, yeah. So I think you had some initial ideas of what you wanted to get out of the experience. Do you want to share any of that? Well,
and that was a question. Of course. And that was one of the questions that you asked from the start, is, in order for this to be considered a success, what are the things that you want to walk away with? And I think I had some very specific goals. Like, I want to figure out sort of, how do I lighten the heavy? I mean, first and foremost. And so I felt like if I could walk away with some tools, because I'm big on like, okay, you give me a bullet point list of 1, 2, 3. These are the things that you do, and I will do them. I am really good at that. So I need the tools. I need the directions. And then I threw one in there at the end of like, and Carla, I think I would really like for you to help me find my purpose in life. No big deal. I know we've really never spoken, but how about this? I felt like you might have needed a challenge. So, yeah, I mean, those were the goals for the session. And, part of me was like, okay, if I walk away with any of those things or any part of those things, it would have been a success. But yeah, I threw it out there.
And that's really the power of intention, because I remember when you said those, I don't always know where the coaching journey is exactly going to go. Like, I like to put those out there so that we can keep them in front of us sort of as a guide. And sometimes what people get is far different, and they're more excited about what they got than what they wanted to get. And sometimes they get exactly what they set out to get. And I do think that's the power of intention. I think it's the power of writing things down and, just keeping that in front of us. And it was a beautiful thing at the end when we circled back, and we'll get to that. But
yeah.
Yeah. So let's, what were some of what was one of the challenges that you were facing that maybe felt like, what were some of a highlight moment, a challenge you faced, and maybe let's talk about how we kind of worked through something.
Yeah, well, I mean, that first part with the managing the heavy is we spent a lot of time talking about that domain of responsibility, right? So what are the things that I am in control of? What are the things that I am not in control of? And that sort of inner layer of what are the things that I'm currently in control of but really don't need to be. And sort of, I mean, I've got a wonderful diagram in my journal here of it's all color coded and things that I I have to keep responsibility of, because those are my things, things that are outside of my control. And then what can I delegate? And so the revelation that I didn't have to clean my own house was like magical. And we talked about, like, I hate it. I hate doing it. I told you about rage mopping.
Rage mopping. That was one of my favorite moments. That was hilarious, because I've been there. I've rage mopped.
So folks, if you're listening out there, you don't have to rage mop. You can delegate that.
It's not necessary.
It's not necessary. And, again, there's always sort of these complexities around, like, well, why don't you just do that? And, it's, in my particular situation, it wasn't as easy as just, there were some challenges to that. And so you helped me kind of work through how to position those, and ways to phrase things so that the delegation. Yeah. So that delegation wasn't just, okay, now you're in charge of mopping and I'm not going to do it. So there's a little bit of art to that, a little bit of science, a little bit of art, but that domain of responsibility of like, okay, these are the things that I'm trying really hard to control, uncontrollable things that are, and I felt so much stress to own those things, and they weren't ownable. But
yeah, well, and just to add a little bit of context for people listening, over a lot of years of coaching, I started noticing, especially with women, that I think of it like an octopus, that we tend to have our arms in all kinds of things that we don't necessarily need to have our arms in. And so that domain of responsibility is kind of way of separating, like, what are you actually responsible for? And then what are all the other things that you're doing that you feel like you need to be doing? And I love working in that model, because, you can free up time and energy and a lot of emotional stress when you start to pull those arms back into what you're actually responsible for. And for me, I had my arms years ago. I had my arms in all kinds of things that I had really good intention around doing. Like, I thought I was helping by worrying about other people's problems and trying to manage their lives and helping them when they didn't necessarily need help. And so you can kind of pull those arms back in and then start to communicate in a different way to really ask if someone needs help before you just step in and always help. And just little things like that. And I think for you, those were.
Yeah, I was trying so hard to make everybody happy that nobody was happy because I was showing up as not my full self because I couldn't, because I was trying to spread everything so thin and like, please everybody. And it was making me so, I was just feeling awful because I'm like, oh, I'm failing. I'm in charge of everybody's happiness all around me. Right. Talk about domain of responsibility. But I felt responsible. Like I've got to make sure that everybody is happy at all times, and putting myself last, that nobody was having a good experience because I was not showing up well for the people that I love the most. I mean, I was short with my kid. I was short with my husband. I was just irritated because I'm like, God, like, because it's, I think when you're trying to do an impossible task, it's, you don't show up well. So just that little shift of, we're just going to shift the time. We're just going to schedule it differently. I mean, I think that that's one of the things too, is like, I'm not great with, oh, here's a new workout routine and you've got to change your entire life, or you've got to, change these things. I think that one of the reasons I was drawn to you and the work that we did together was that it was just a shift of thinking shift. It's not like, okay, you've got to do more, because I don't think I can't take more, right? But it's just think about these things differently. And so that for me was the most meaningful, because it wasn't like a radical change to the things I was doing. It was just a mind shift.
Yeah. Those are the tools that came into my life a lot of years ago, and why behind why I do this work, because I want to pay that forward, because that your thinking is really the foundation to everything else that you're doing. And so if we can get in there and shift the way that you're thinking and the way that you're perceiving things, then all of a sudden this like other door opens up, and then you grab a hold of like, oh my gosh, I could do this, or I could do that, or I'm not giving you that part. I'm just helping you open up that door. And then you get to see like, oh my gosh, this would work so much better. And
right.
It is just those little changes. And I love that you said it's not about doing more, because clearly like you didn't have any capacity for more. And most of the time we don't. And the thought of doing more is exhausting. And I tried to follow that path for a long time of, doing more, being better, working harder, hoping that someday my life was going to feel better and the experience of it was going to be better. And you're right. It's really just about starting to think different. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, wow, then I could do this, or I could do that. And things start to shift around. And all of a sudden it starts to feel and look different in your reality. And yeah, so good.
And just being careful, I think, with that domain of responsibility, you were said, be very careful to not fill those spaces back up. So if you're going to delegate something off, don't be in a rush to fill that with, something else. So just sit in the space and let it, enjoy a little bit more breathing room around it. Because that's,
and
again,
part of that was challenging. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh yeah. But it's hard, what else am I doing? Because I'm not fulfilled yet, or it's not perfect yet. So I must need to fill that with something else.
Yeah. Well, and some of those, tendencies are very deep rooted in, our past, where there's like a need to be over responsible, and then the response, if you have the responsibility gene where you feel a great load of responsibility for a lot of things, then it's natural that you want to fill those back up, because that's the pattern you've been in. And so what does that look like for you now? Like, how are you continuing to practice that? Because I imagine it's still a practice for you.
It is. I think that there's the trying to be mindful of not jumping to raise my hand to volunteer to do things. That's different, because there's things that I really enjoy doing, but then I also complain that I'm so busy, and those two are just incongruent. So there's some things that I still am volunteering for. I mean, I've opened up some space, but then filled it some of it back up. Not entirely, but trying to have a little bit of restraint to say, you just need to pull back, at least for right now, because there's just, there's always a lot going on, but you don't always have to be overflowing with to-do lists. So yeah. I'm getting better at it. I'm a recovering over-volunteerer.
This is so good. So was there any more that you wanted to share from that part of the journey?
Well, I mean, I think that again, that last moonshot goal, and it all sort of ties in, was, hey, Carla, help me find my purpose in life. Haha, there's no way, right? I had gone through my life and again, been very successful, but always sort of felt like, I'd never, almost an inadequacy that I'm not doing something huge, right? Like I'm not, like I'm not organizing a cancer walk. I'm not volunteering at the dog shelter. I'm not, eradicating homelessness in the city. And, all of these big things that I look around and see, people that I know and that I respect very much, that they have these big, bright, purposeful lives. And there was a sense of that inadequacy, like, I'm not called to that, or I don't have time for that, or I'm paralyzed that I'm not meant for some big purpose like that. And then, if I'm not meant for some big purpose, well, what's my purpose? What's the reason for it all? And there was a day, and you were told me about your friend. Sorry. And you said, it doesn't have to be a giant thing. I don't know if you want to tell about your friend and her, her mantra, if you remember what you told me.
Yeah, I don't remember. Which story was this?
You said, well, I've got a friend, and her stated purpose for her life is just to be a force for good. And that's it.
Yes. Yeah. It was something I read in a book like years ago, like I want to be a force of good. And I just was so inspired by that idea. And like, it became my own, like, that's my mission. I just want to be a force of good, like throughout my day and every little interaction I'm doing. So yes, continue.
Yeah. And it was funny because that was at the tail end of our sessions. I think it might have even been one of the last ones. And because I'm thinking to myself, we're not going to get to the purpose part. And then this came into play of this just, it doesn't have to be some big plan to change the world. It can just, to show up and show a kindness to somebody, do what you can to lighten somebody else's heavy, say hello, smile.
And you were already doing some of that, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Especially through the pandemic, seeing how some people showed up was like, and they were just like rude and cruel to people at the grocery store or one another. And like, especially the people that were helping with things, the people that were in that service industry. So, restaurant servers, the people at the UPS store that stand there and they have to just, take crap from customers that come in a bad mood. And I was like, gosh, that's, I want to show my appreciation for what they're doing. So I started just handing out, like, I would buy a big stack of the $5 Starbucks gift cards. And so when I saw somebody was having a bad day or whatever, I would just be like, hey, I really appreciate what you're doing. And it made me feel so good to do that.
I adore that. I remember you telling me that. So beautiful.
Thank you. But like, I think it's important to show gratitude to people in a meaningful way too. So, I'm big on the old-fashioned handwritten thank you notes. And so I just started sending them out more, especially during the pandemic, just knowing, okay, if somebody's going to go to the mailbox, instead of a giant stack of bills, they're also going to find some goofy little, note from me with a smiley face and a sticker on it. And that sense of like, and it starts out a little bit, candidly, it's a little bit selfish because I love it. I love writing it down. I love handing out that little, a little gesture or making somebody's day. And so there's a selfish component to it where I'm like, oh, I'm doing this because it makes me feel good. But, it's funny, especially with the little notes, it's, we coined a phrase, it's a joy loop, because I'll sit down with a pen and a note card and I'll write it out and I'll be smiling, and I'm smiling when I stick it in the mailbox and put the flag up. And then just, I forget about it because a few days go by, and then poof, out of the blue, I get a call or a text or something like, "Oh my gosh, you just made my day. That card was so great." And then I feel terrific all over again. So it's just this boomerang of happiness. And, I think learning that it was okay to have a purpose that was just to make somebody smile. Sorry. I knew this would happen.
It's good. It's so good.
Yeah. But it was really meaningful to know that it didn't have to be, I didn't have to march on Washington. I didn't have to, solve any of the world's problems, that it was a good thing for me to just be myself and make somebody else smile. And that was good enough.
Mm-hmm. Can I share about this?
Yes. Yeah.
So shortly after this conversation, Samantha sent me I think she did it in Canva. She sent me this image, like inspiration for Joy Loops. And it was like a bowl of colorful, I guess, Fruit Loops. Duh.
Yeah.
It's a bowl of Fruit Loops with hearts all around it. It says Joy Loops, now free. And it says, live to create joy. Enjoy a big bowl of Joy Loops every day, filled with all the good stuff you need in your life. Joy Loops are free and may cause spontaneous smiles and endless happiness. I remember you sent that to me, and I just was like, we all need more of that in our life. We just all need more of that. And it's so simple and so big all at the same time.
Yeah. And it doesn't need to be, like the Starbucks gift cards. I mean, obviously there's a cost to that. And, I'm fortunate that I'm able to hand those out every here and there to people, but it costs 50 cents to send somebody a note in the mail. You can send a text and that's good. Or, call somebody. That's great as well to take the time to do a phone call. But I just think it's so unexpected when was the last time you opened up your mailbox and there was something in there other than junk mail or a bill?
Yeah. Not very often.
Yeah. And it's fun. I love it. And like I said, I love the loop that it creates, because there's like that immediate, is it dopamine? What's the good feeling drug in your brain?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you get that immediate hit, and then you get it again a few days later when they open it up. And, but I think it's an easy thing to do. And not a lot of people do it, but more people should do that. Just express little happinesses. So.
Well, and when it's like when you get stuck in your head or having a bad day or in a mood, and often we, the reaction is to like kind of retreat. But the moment I make a different choice and show up for somebody else or show up on a coaching call, even though I'm like, oh my gosh, like I wish I were in a different state of mind to do this coaching call, the moment I show up and get in somebody else's world is the moment all of it shifts inside. And so I think it's healthy. It's healthy to reach out.
And it's so great. Yeah, it's so great. I had, I just had a birthday, and it was like 8:30 Tuesday night, and the doorbell rang. And I'm like, oh no, what's going on? The dogs are barking. And two of my dearest friends TP'd my house and showed up like in cat masks with a box, of like goofy presents and stuff, and that like just showing up for somebody. And, you don't have to toilet paper somebody's house, but it's a fun idea just to show them you care.
I know, it's the little things. It's the little things all over, spreading goodness, making changes in our life. It really starts with just simple little steps. Okay.
Yes, it does. It
So
does.
I think we covered everything we wanted to share. I think I talked about, is there anything else that we missed that I do. There's one more moment that you posted that golf cart. There was something about the golf cart. Like was that a someday? It was a someday thing, right? That became
Yeah, it
a
was.
today thing. Share about that.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, it's like, my husband and I celebrated our 20th wedding anniversary, and we were kind of hemming and hawing, like, do you want a nice watch? No. Do you want some jewelry? No, not really. And, again, it was COVID, so we couldn't couldn't book a vacation or anything like that. So we were talking about, like, what can we do that would bring us joy? What would make us happy? And we landed on the purchase of a golf cart. And it's been so much fun. Like, we get in it, we zip around the neighborhood, the wind in our hair and the music blaring, and,
Spreading joy,
beat the
I'm
horn
sure.
at people. It's hilarious. Yeah. I mean, it's just so much fun, but that, someday we should just do it. You know what I mean? Like, if you were able to do it, just make it happen and capture that joy and fun when you can, because the world is heavy and you need something that's going to make you smile. So whatever it is for you, if it's, like, book a spa day, go get your nails done, get a pedicure, take a trip with a friend, like, just do it, just book it, do it.
I love that. It was such a joy to witness and watch you go through this journey. Because as you began to find ways to lighten your load and minimize some of the things that were feeling like obligation and adulting, is when you started to make space for all these other things that brought you more joy and brought you more fulfillment. And then I think then you can start to approach some of the load, the things that we have to do. You have a different perspective and energy that you can now bring to all of those things. And there was just such a huge ripple impact. And it was just an absolute honor to watch you go through that, because from over here, I can give people tools and I can, kind of open the door, but you got to walk through, and you so walked through that door and continue to do it in your life. And that is just such a gift for me to witness. So I want you to know that.
Well, thank you. Thank you. It's been such a change, and, none of the chores or tasks have gone away. It's just, I'm looking at them differently. So, instead of I have to, it's I get to. Yeah, I'm fortunate to have a good job. So instead of like, I have to be on a conference call, I get to be on a conference call while a lot of other people are unemployed. Or, maybe it's, I've got to help my kid with her Spanish homework. No, I get to do that. I get to spend time with her in a meaningful way. So it's, a little tweak, a little verbiage tweak.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's bring it full circle. So we've got...
Yes, we do.
Yeah, you go ahead.
So I think if you are listening and want to make these kind of changes in your life, I would suggest, again, listening to Carla speak on some other topics. We've got her booked as the keynote speaker for our 9th annual Women Lead Here conference. If you use the discount code Carla R20, all caps, you will get 20% off of your registration. So this conference this year is Friday, November 5th, 2021. It's virtual, so wherever you're at in the world, you can log on, COVID-free, and still get a great day of education, inspiration, and connection with really meaningful and wonderful topics and speakers. So, Carla, just again, thank you from the committee for agreeing to keynote for us this year. I can't wait to hear your topic and talk about the conference this year is all around fear. So our topic is Fear is So Last Year. Together we're fearless. I think that's what it is. But registration is open at azhfma.org find the Women's Leadership Conference, and you can go online and register, use that discount code. But it's really exciting. We're thrilled to partner with another great charity. It's the Diaper Bank of Central Arizona. So we've got a really fun raffle. You could go online and there's all sorts of different prizes. There's coaching sessions with some of the most incredible women out there. We've got like rock climbing. There's a Mexican getaway vacation that you can win. There's purses, jewelry. There's all sorts of fun stuff on there. So, and it all goes to help the proceeds go to benefit the diaper bank. But just invite everybody to, if you can, join us for the day on Friday the 5th at the Women Lead Here conference.
Awesome. So excited. Yeah, I encourage you to check that out. Like I said in the beginning, it was really such a great event. I not only spoke last year, but attended all day and took away so much from the event, and so excited to be a part of it again. And I'm going to talk on the art of everyday skydiving and just how we can show up and be brave, just like Samantha's talking about. It takes courage to show up and change your life, and to make even those simple little changes. It takes a lot of courage, and we're just going to talk about ways you can do that in your everyday life. And I can't wait. It's going to be so fun.
I can't wait. It will be fun.
Thank you so much for hanging out today.
You bet.
Yeah, it's such.
You bet. Thank you for having me on.
I adore you. Your energy is so much fun, and I loved our work together, and to be continued.
I like it. I love it. Thanks, Carla.
I love it. Go make joy loops. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Differently. I hope it stirred your thinking, and I invite you to take one inspired action from something that stood out to you. If you want to hear more conversations like this, hit subscribe on your favorite podcast app, and please help us spread the word by sharing this podcast with people you know. Remember, new episodes drop weekly. See you next week.